Welcome to Pop's Culture,
Welcome to Pop's Culture.
the very first podcast from a father and daughter duo.
Your favorite father and daughter duo. I've declared.
Oh, your
Your
favorite.
favorite.
My
Your
favorite?
my
I
favorite.
didn't know they're my favorite.
Everyone's favorite.
I don't know if they're everybody's
be.
favorite.
So yeah, welcome to the pilot. We're glad to have you. Have a seat. Get your coffee. Get a little snack. For me, I have some peaches and a Stanley of lemonade.
Deadpool. I forgot this is going to be audio, a lot of audio, so I'm pointing to Deadpool right now. He should be telling you to caffeinate as well.
I can confirm he is. So basically today is just going to be about getting to know us, getting to know the whole mission statement of it all, how this blessed podcast came to be. So yeah.
And lists. My favorite, lists. I hate lists, and Riley made me do lists. Best of, your favorite. That's so wide open and vague. How can you pick your favorite anything?
We just got to get it out of the way. I figured first episode is the way to go.
I guess you'll get to know a little bit about each of us by like, oh, he listens to that, or she listens to that, or they watch this together. Like, I mean, who knows? I mean, I'm wondering if any of it will be the same, which would be very.
That would be interesting. I really think there's only one category.
See, the only TV shows, right? Yeah, that would be the possibility. I think
one is
music and bands and
like.
Yeah, and it's probably then it was probably on both of our lists because I think it's one of the greatest television shows ever made. But yeah, okay, we'll get there when we get there.
We shall.
Excuse, I'm fighting a cold, so the sniffling and everything. I apologize in advance.
You're fired.
Okay.
Anyways, so for those that are not of the clique of friends and family that have been bombarded by my self-promotion lately, my name is Riley. I'm an advertising student. I'm a junior, and yeah, I've always just loved design. This podcast has really given me the opportunity to build a brand from the ground up for the first time, which is really exciting, and it really makes me aware of just how much there is to it, because my dad's like, yo, you got WordPress? And I'm like, I don't know what that is. He was like, you gonna learn. But yeah, I definitely am just passionate about graphic design. I really think that visual language is so important. And this brand, like I said, has just allowed me the opportunity to show what I believe is the best version of my dad and I through a podcast, through a brand. Even as simple as picking the colors and the font. Like, it's just fun, and I love it, and I love to fixate on it. If I shared how long it took me to pick the fonts for this brand, it would be really embarrassing, and that time is lost forever, but it's okay.
People are probably sick of me talking about it, to be honest with you. There's a few. There's also a few, though, that can't wait to hear it, and they're looking forward to it. This is not my first rodeo in the podcast world. I was part of Rock Under Fire. It was a good podcast. We had a lot of fun doing it. In the end, it just kind of crashed and burned, I guess, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. Hey, no harm, no foul. Those guys were great. They were great co-hosts. We had a good time doing it. Like I said, it was a lot of fun, and there were some memorable moments on there. One that comes to mind is burning down the Supertramp building. Probably one of my all-time. Anybody who knows me, I'm going to give you a little piece of information now about me. I cannot stand the band Supertramp. It was on one of our least favorite. I believe it was least favorite songs, and I just took it a whole step further and went into the whole least favorite band Supertramp. I mean, I literally said I would go outside the Supertramp headquarters with a can of gasoline and burn the building down. And it sparked a lot of commentary, and it was fun. It was funny in the moment, and we shot from the hip. We're going to shoot from the hip on this one and see what we go. See where it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the Supertramp building bit was really, it still resonates with me deeply, obviously, which is why I feel like who better than my dad to start talking about pop culture with, because I think the idea really came to us when we were just sitting on the couch, like, through banter about pop culture, these headlines about different influencers and stuff, and it just, like, made us think, like, what were influencers when my dad was growing up in the 70s? That doesn't, like, that's so interesting to think about. Because, there wasn't any Instagram.
I don't know. I don't even know if they existed, influencers. That's
Fat
such
Albert?
That's such a trendy word. Fat Albert, I guess he influenced me, right? That's my boy. We're going to get together and do a podcast.
Indeed, indeed.
That's my boy. I don't know if he's an influencer. I mean, but I certainly watched that cartoon a lot. I mean, that was, it was one of my favorites. I loved it. It was, I didn't grow up very wealthy, so I mean, it kind of resonated with me. Those kids were out just getting stuff done and doing things, and they were poor, and it was, I don't know, it was good. It was fun. It was just fun. I mean, unfortunately, Bill Cosby turned into the monster that he became. But I mean, he at the time, he seemed true, and he was believable as like a nice guy or a do-gooder. It's a shame where he ended up, but that's where I am about Fat Albert. I keep looking at my dog. So anybody that does watch this, I'm sorry, she's over there nestling in some new blankets. That's trying to keep her quiet.
And that is actually why I'm a newfound cat person. But I digress.
I also want to touch on the whole angry dad thing, because you mentioned that it was based off of like Angry Dad and that episode. I don't remember. You posted, I think, on our website. The Angry Dad episode was like season 22 or something like that. I don't remember it exactly, but that's not the Angry Dad episode. That's Angry Dad the movie. It's the actual Angry Dad episode is season 13, episode 18. Stan Lee is actually a guest on the show and comes into the comic book store, a comic book guy, and Bart, he tries to get some creativity out of Bart, and Bart draws Angry Dad, and it's killer. So what happens is that anybody who's never seen the show, I'll give a brief description. He sells the show to like an internet startup, and they're going to animate it on the internet or whatever. And he just keeps giving them stock, like, here's, take some stock in this company, and the company crashes or whatever. So fast forward to the one that you were thinking about, Angry Dad the movie. I guess the person that took over the company that bought Bart's video, it's like the only thing of value that they got from the company, like a chair company or something, that the internet company, something silly. But they turn around and want to make a movie out of Angry Dad, and it wins an Oscar for like a short film, and they get Homer to do the voice. But the original episode is great because Homer turns into like the Hulk, and they're beating him, and he's like, make Homer angry, and it's one of the greatest Simpsons episodes ever. I love that show so much.
I was actually just about to say that, once again, for those that don't know us outside of the podcast quite yet, my dad is absolutely a Simpsons encyclopedia, so yeah. I would venture to say that, because you've made some very niche references about it before. And even within like the drafting of Pop's culture, I mean, you instantly thought of that connection to The Simpsons.
Well, our initial idea, I wanted for you to try and provoke me like that. It was just going to be based on music, and as we talked about it and fleshed out some ideas, it was like, well, why just keep ourselves in a box of music? Like we were gonna, one of our ideas, and we still might do something like this, was that Riley was going to pull have a jar full of albums that she would want me to listen to, and that week she would pull one out and give me 2 weeks to listen to it and review it, and then come back and try. She was going to try and provoke me to some angry dad moment, which she still may. I don't know. She still might get that out of me. I don't know, but that's the idea behind it, and we just kind of went from there, and discussed it, and the plan was to always incorporate just everything, so we got away from just doing the music side of it.
Yeah, and I think doing a podcast with your parent definitely made me think more about like my childhood and growing up, and of course music is such like a center point of my childhood, and I think of all the music, all the Jack Johnson I listened to growing up, of course. But I remember go ahead.
He's harmless. That's why.
Yeah.
I like Jack Johnson for that. It sounded good sonically to children, I think, and as you were 4 years old, you kind of like got giddy about it and danced around the house, and it was just it was good times. I mean that made me happy. Like I could still think back to like Upside Down from the Curious George movie or something.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
Or Banana Pancakes.
It's a cool
classic.
Yeah, it's a good memory. It's a good memory.
So just, of course, the music that I grew up with, but also you're surrounded by pop culture all the time. And a lot of my professors really like to remind me that I'm a digital native. I've grown up around technology. I got a Chromebook in 6th grade, and I've been using one for school since then, which is crazy to think about. But with that,
and an iPad. I introduced you to it. I introduced you to that early, and I thought I was just talking about that with somebody today, that I'm glad I did, because it kind of just helped you find your place and take off. And I ask you questions about it. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just the technology has moved way too fast for me now. It just, I'm like, what? Huh? Where?
And
get off my lawn.
Exactly. And the butterfly effect of getting an iPad is crazy, because that's where I started digital drawing. And I do like to draw, but it's never been like supernatural to me. So when you're introduced to graphic design as a whole, and you don't feel discredited that it's not that it isn't drawing anymore, it just feels so good. And most of my time on my iPad was just spent like figuring out the tools on Procreate, which is basically the drawing version of Photoshop. There's so much to do and so much versatility. I digress. What I was just saying is, growing up, there's just so many different kinds of media. That's why I really wanted to talk about movies and TV shows, because it's what we grew up with. And my dad and I have very contrasting shows that we grew up with, to say the least. Like,
we didn't have like Carly.
No, you didn't. And I feel bad for you.
No, I don't think I would have watched a show like that anyway. I can't think of like what a male's version. What would the equivalent of that have been when I was growing up? I can't think of it. I don't know.
Honestly, I don't even know for my generation. I mean, I know boys that do watch iCarly, but it was usually SpongeBob, which...
Yeah, SpongeBob for us would have been, I don't know. I have no idea. Scooby-Doo. I liked the Pink Panther, because he didn't say nothing. He just kind of was like cool. And
we watched a lot of Boomerang.
Yeah, Boomerang is, I mean, for me, that's all the classic stuff. I remember I went away, and the Airbnb, I came to see you actually, in the Airbnb when you were down south. The Airbnb didn't have any regular television channels. I was like, what is this? But they had Boomerang and like classic Boomerang or Cartoon Network, one of them, and it was just classic cartoons. And so the whole week I was there, or whole weekend, I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I watched like crazy cartoons, Rocky and Bullwinkle, like Underdog, like stuff that I hadn't seen in years. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I mean. Like, it can be such a bonding point, because we sat there and watched some cartoons that I'd never heard of. But even when I was younger, like, I remember you taking me to see Captain America, and that changed my perception of film from a very young age. That was the first Marvel movie I was allowed to see, and I was such a tomboy when I was in like late elementary, early middle school, and it's this one's fault. It's the butterfly effect of Captain America, because I was just obsessed with superheroes. That was a big phase for me. Unfortunately, I led to like the DC area, which is likely what made me fall out of love with superheroes after the release of all these movies, but yeah.
They did make some bad movies.
Ryan Reynolds, I'm looking at ya. Poor guy.
Oh, you mean Green Lantern? Yeah. No, Deadpool went back and fixed all
Absolutely. And then just going back to the brand and everything, I am not much of a podcast listener, honestly. The few that do stick out to me are the ones that resonated with me a lot. So for the branding, Broski Report by Brittany Broski. She is a TikTok phenomenon. I'm obsessed with her, and she's wonderful. And it's not really about me paying credit or anything, because I know that our ideas are completely original. But if a podcast is able to keep my attention for a really long time, then that's pretty impressive, because I am not the best at it. So yeah, Brittany Broski. And
that's
then Hive Mind is definitely second to it. Hive Mind, I saw them live in Philly in February, and they got me on stage. One thing about me is if you ask for a volunteer, I'm gonna get up there, and it was amazing. Many of like the game show-esque ideas that we've drafted have been somewhat inspired by Hive Mind, and kind of just that like.
Well, okay, so I don't even know what that is. However, it's been a dream of mine. I want to be a game show host. I've always wanted to be a game see, you know, your generation doesn't know. The old style guys had these long microphones, thin, skinny microphones with this little black ball on the top, and they kind of held it low like this, and they would talk. And I want one. I want one desperately. Hi, I'm so and so, and welcome to the Wheel of Chance or something. I don't want to say Wheel of Fortune, but their voices, their characters, they were characters of themselves, and they put themselves up on a pedestal, and they were just they're game show hosts. Welcome to Hollywood Squares. Welcome to Card Sharks. The other guy, Whammy, with the whammy. I don't even remember what that guy's name. Chuck Woolery and Bob Eubanks and Bob Barker. Like these guys. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because I grew up loving game shows. So I guess that's where our two worlds collided in this, which is miraculous to me. I had no idea that you were going to say that.
The branding, we talked about this. Like The Price is Right was almost a blueprint for what I wanted my ideas to kind of look like, because that show will probably never end.
And actually they do. It looks very. I don't know. What was the Atomic Style, right? Is that what
Atomic,
that was called?
but mid-century modern is the official.
It was really cool. I just dug it. I mean, when you first started working on it, I know that you had discussed that you're going to do some graphic of, I guess you're going to do overlays during this, where you'll show some of the graphics of your early concepts. Those are cool. I like that. And I remember sending you back some of the images that you had sent me in hopes that you would have put them on either Instagram or on the website. But now this is a much better idea. I think it's going to be really cool to see that, because it looked very court jester-ish in the early stages to what it's become, especially the color. The color landscape, it was just different. I don't know. It reminded me of New Orleans, one. It reminded me of like what the heck do they do in New Orleans down there for Mardi Gras? The king cake and stuff like that. I can't think of what the hell they do. There's a word for it. I can't think of it, or a phrase or something. Somebody can correct me, I'm sure. But it reminded me a lot of that, and I can't wait to see the concept and what people's reaction are to that. If there
Yeah,
are.
and originally I was trying, like when I was kind of workshopping the idea, because I'm glad we came up with the name first, because that was easier to work around than coming up with like all of the colors and the fonts first. So originally I was thinking like a motel sign or like a drive-in sign, because we're from Jersey and I feel like when I think of Jersey I think of the Wildwood motels for some reason.
Or diners, drive-ins. Yeah,
Perhaps
absolutely. All that
dives,
stuff. Yeah,
if you fancy.
Okay, guy.
So I was kind of just trying to pull inspiration from where we're from, because I think we're lucky to be on the East Coast in terms of pop culture, because I feel like we are kind of immersed into media and pop culture so much more intensely than when I am venturing into the Midwest. But yeah, really interesting. Another, I think, notable trait that we share is that we are probably the most family-oriented people around, which I think is pretty special to bring into a podcast. I mentioned when I was posting about it on like my personal accounts, like I want this to kind of just feel like a warm hug, like you're sitting across from us on the couch, or we're having a porch talk for those that are in the know. I just think that kind of comfort is great, and my best friends and I, we've all been like in long distance best friendships since I was 12, so I understand needing that kind of connection from afar, or just in the background. You know, you're doing some homework, you're like, I just want a normal conversation about stuff that's going on, maybe about an album that I like, you know.
The I'm going to be morbid here for a second, but when I'm long gone, this imprint will always be on the internet for you to look back at and be like, I did that with my dad, you know. And you show your kids, I did that. That's your grandfather. We did
that's
that.
your pops.
And that to me, that's pretty cool. I dig that aspect of it.
So I know that you are very anti-list, but at least we're getting it out of the way. But I think that this is going to be a great way for everyone to get to know us a little bit better. And
that's why I caved. That's why I caved, because people will get a little insight to, oh, that's what he is listening to. Oh, that's what she watched. Yeah, I understand that. I get that.
Yeah, especially
most people that know us don't know.
Because I always see on TikTok, as soon as I open it, it'll be like, these are your vibes if you listen to blah, blah, blah. How do you know what my vibes are? Come on now.
Well, that's the thing, though, about lists, especially music lists. It's it's how do you pick? Like you were very strict. 3. You know, I have notes I'm looking at there. You picked pick 3 of this, 3 of that. How the hell do you do that? Maybe this day I want to drive my car through a brick wall, and I want to listen to Rage Against the Machine, or I don't know, Slayer or something, and I don't want to listen to what I really enjoy. Or maybe this day I want to listen to the Counting Crows because I'm kind of feeling sorrowful, and singer-songwriter stuff of the band or something like that. It's just, I don't know. It just, but I really tried my best to narrow it down. And what helped me was my year in review on iTunes. It kind of painted a picture of what I really listened to, and I was like, okay, kind of makes sense.
Absolutely.
So my top 3 anything. Anybody who knows me, Xbox, first and foremost. I love playing Xbox. 54 years old, I play Xbox every single day. Love it. There's just no two ways about it. It is my escape from reality. It's my escape from whatever. New Orleans, I love that city. New Orleans is, it's New York City, but it's got some charm. It's got Southern charm. New York City with Southern charm. And then the third thing would have been, I love playing poker. I love poker. Online, in a casino, wherever. I love poker.
Those are some pretty solid answers.
I love a lot more than that, but those are my... You said 3 things, and those are the 3 things that just kind of jumped into my head.
They make sense. I wasn't expecting New Orleans, but that was a fun one. My top 3 anything are very different. So...
I guess I didn't get the memo.
No, you completely did what you were asked. So... My my first thing is the color pink. Big fan. The Inventor, you were cooking with that one. That was really good. Next, I have
They were probably French.
Perchance. Next up, I have disposable cameras. I love a good disposable camera. Waiting for that film is like, just the anticipation of it is great. I have an app on my phone where I can make all my pictures look like a disposable camera because I'm just really cool and hip and trendy like that.
You've been doing that lately too. I've seen some of your photos.
I just love it. How it has the name of, or like the date in the corner, and I love oversaturation and maximalism, if you can't tell by my surroundings. And last, I have a grande iced chai latte with 2 pumps of vanilla. Probably the most Gen Z thing I'll ever say. But it's just perfect. The proportions are wonderful. I'm not even a Starbucks person unless it's that drink. They knew what they were doing.
I don't even know how you drink that garbage.
That one you've tried before. That one is good. That one's not that bad.
Coffee. All right, top 3 artists. Yeah, this is, again, I based this really off of what my iTunes year in review said that I listened to the most. Pearl Jam, Pink Floyd, and Steely Dan. It's very difficult to pick 3 artists because I love music a lot. I love a lot of different music. There's bands that easily could have made that top 3 list. The Allman Brothers could be on that list. The band could be on that list. Jesus. Bruce Springsteen could be on that list. You know, I mean, there's a lot of other things that could be on that list, but I had to really narrow it down to 3, and those are the hard. Like, I could sit and listen to like their Rush. They could be on that list. I could listen to the entire discography of all those artists and just let it play, and I usually do. Like, I have all of their records on iTunes, and I'll just shuffle through. You know, that they play them. Led Zeppelin, they could be on there. I mean, I can go on and on and on. But those 3 are the Mount Rushmore for me, I guess, if you will. Soundgarden is another one. Jesus, that's just so vague.
I have to say that I did expect those exact answers.
I mean, if anything, I'm predictable.
Well, I don't know if I would say predictable as much as I would just say, like, consistent, if that makes sense. Because those are, like, the 3 bands that I feel like, if we're not including Counting Crows into the conversation as well, they were all pretty much in my childhood at some point. And yeah, you know how cool I felt going into 7th grade saying that I knew all the songs off of Animals by Pink Floyd?
You know what struck me once? You told me, I guess it was your first year of college, you had a conversation with a professor about music. You were talking about music and Frank Zappa. You said something about the lyrics to Frank Zappa, how they, you know, he didn't really give a shit about the lyrics. It didn't make any sense, and he was all about the music. And you had mentioned that something about Steely Dan too. Steely Dan cared a little bit more about the lyrics. They made sense, whereas Zappa's really just didn't. He could care less. But Steely Dan still didn't really care about the lyrics. It was all music for them. They cared a little bit more, is how. But that always struck me as like, your professor looking at you being like, oh, you had a parent that listens to music.
Well, he is still one of the best professors I've ever had. I haven't even run into him on campus before. I doubt he even would remember my name. But we had some great conversations about music. I mean, he didn't even know who Oasis was, which was really impressive because we were talking about bands like The Clash and the Sex Pistols, and I was like, well, Oasis is kind of the mock of bands like that, but also the Beatles just kind of mixed together. They're like that emo, whiny, British nonsense, and I love it, even if that doesn't sound too appealing. And he was like, I don't know who the hell that is. And yeah.
They're good. They're good. I'm okay with Oasis.
Yeah.
Are they on your list?
They almost made it.
See, so there you go.
They almost made it for songs, but no.
Okay.
So my top artist, this is going to be pretty predictable. Number 1 is Lana Del Rey. That woman has absolutely enveloped me in her lyrics, and I'm obsessed with everything that she has released, will release. I'll be there. We are recording this a day after the Grammys. I'm still not over her loss last year. And that actually is a perfect segue into my next artist, Clairo. Adore Clairo. She was robbed last night at the Grammys. So history repeats itself, and that's okay. I just will root for the underdogs. But Clairo.
Grammys don't mean shit.
Clairo is someone that I discovered when I was in 7th grade when she was releasing really bubblegum bedroom pop kind of music, and she eased into a more 70s-esque vibe. She's very inspired by jazz from the 70s. One of the songs on her newest album, I said, reminds me of The Dark Crystal. It's just so nostalgic and warm and fuzzy, and I'm obsessed with it. I saw her in concert, which really just solidified, like, first of all, I waited to see that concert for a very long time, but it was perfect. And then my last artist is the one that definitely changes out the most, but recently it's been Kendrick Lamar, which I know I might get an eye roll at. Anyways.
Noted.
Going into albums.
Albums, like I said, I cheated. I went with an album by each of the artists that I picked. Gaucho by Steely Dan. Not their best album, but man, it's a powerhouse. If I were going to say best album by Steely Dan, it would be Asia. I mean, it just sounds, the sound. I read something that that Asia, when that record was released, that people that were selling stereo equipment would play that because it was just sonically perfect. Don't know how true that is, but Gaucho to me is their Mount Everest. Animals by Pink Floyd. It's from beginning to end. There's just nothing. It's brilliant. The song Dogs is 17 minutes of brilliance. And Vitology by Pearl Jam, third album by them. Love it a lot. A little different. That's where it started. The tree started shaking a little bit, and the front runners that loved their first two albums were like, I'm not into this anymore. And they started to grow as artists, and you could see where they were going to go. And I've been a fan of them since, and I will. I mean, you and I saw them twice in 1 week a few months ago. You were at one of the shows with me in Philly. Still the game changer for me, that group. Love them.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that was a little, I saw it coming, but the one I knew was Animals. Animals, you have like an emotional connection to.
I definitely do. I like that.
It's amazing.
Might be that might be like my favorite album of all time. It just does a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you mentioned Dogs. I'll get into that whenever we start talking about songs a little bit, because I feel like Dogs definitely helped me understand longer songs better and interpret the artistic ability of being able to fit that much music into that amount of time. It's insane, but we'll get to that later. My top albums are Norman Effing Rockwell by Lana Del Rey. That is seriously the most comforting, well, not the most. It might be the second most because of my second place album, but we'll get there. Just the feeling of Pacific Northwest, beachy. I listened to this album the first time when I was 18, but I was still like, ooh, I feel like I could drink a martini with olives to this album. Those are just the vibes for it. You would never catch me drinking a martini. Those things are gross. I don't like olives, but I love Lana Del Rey, and I love the essence of that album and the patriotism of it. Go ahead. What you gonna say?
Nothing. Drinking martinis, listening to Lana Del Rey.
Exactly. Or like one of those cigarette holders, like I'm in Great Gatsby. Next up, I have Charm by Clairo. This is her newest album, which I did not expect to feel so, I guess, intertwined with, but I feel like I'm in a point in my life where almost every single song just aligns with me. Historically, her music has just been very moody, and that just was perfect for the time in my life that I was in, because I was like a moody high schooler, but now I'm a happy, thriving college student that, like, I don't know how to explain it. Listen, stream Add Up My Love by Clairo, and we'll talk about it. Those are the vibes that I'm manifesting for myself for the rest of my life. And then last...
Predictable, your first
Of
two,
course.
so go ahead.
And then last, I have Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers. This album is just so special to me. I saw Phoebe Bridgers in concert with my cousin Maddie when I was a senior in high school, and I think that was just such a perfect time for me to find such an emotionally compelling and heavy album. Truthfully, Moonsong is just... she's so far ahead of her time for songwriting. It's remarkable. And she sang a Bruce song in Asbury, so naturally I love her forever. I can't say that she's in my top 3 artists anymore because I don't really follow the whole Boy Genius situation now, but I was in the pit for Phoebe Bridgers, and that will never happen again.
What I heard was wah 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 wah. Wah wah wah.
Exactly. I'm like a teacher in Charlie Brown, but yeah, Phoebe Bridgers, shout out, love that woman. For albums, so we can go into like the discussion of songs now, because picking top 3 songs was rough.
I didn't pick songs. I just, no, it wasn't going to happen. Definitely wasn't happening.
Well, I'm still going to talk about mine briefly, if you don't mind.
So talk about them.
So,
I don't give a shit. Talk about whatever you want.
So, what I was talking about earlier when I mentioned Dogs being a 17-minute song, one of the reasons NFR is that's Norman effing Rockwell, for those not in the know, being one of my favorite albums of all time, is because of the third song, which... let me just sidetrack really quick and say, contrary to my friend's belief, I don't curse in front of my dad very often, but my favorite song is Venice Bitch, and it's just such a work of art, and I can't even explain it. It just gives me the vibes that I really wish I lived through, like 70s in California. Like, I want to be there, and I am just... in case you couldn't tell by everything I've listed, I love romantic music. And you're gonna learn that with my next 2, which is Harvest Moon by Neil Young.
Wow, that came out of left field.
Well, that
Holy
reminds
shit.
me though.
That's a good one.
Because I grew up watching Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas every single year, likely on my birthday. Because I am nearly a Christmas baby. And I have always said that Harvest Moon sounds like it could be associated with Emmett Otter.
In that movie, absolutely. Well, Neil Young himself sounds like a muppet when he sings. But that song in particular, yeah, I love Neil Young. I'm not mocking him, but he gives off a vibe of like, like he sounds like a muppet. Like you just want, start a jug band with him. But wow, Harvest Moon's a good one. That's wow.
Like I said, I love some romantic music. And then last, by Jeff Buckley, I have Lover, You Should Come Over. That is lyrically one of the best songs I've ever heard. That's another longer song. I think it's about 8 minutes. All My Blood for the Sweetness of Her Laughter is my favorite lyric of all time. And I just wanted to say that because it's just, I love it. I just can't help it because I listen to that song and I'm like, how does someone sit down and think about this as a lyric? Like, that's insane.
That's why they're songwriters.
It's true. It's true. Can't argue.
That's why they get the big bucks.
Anyways, moving into movies.
Movies you're going into?
Movies I'm going into.
I'm not even going to... none of these need any explanation. But there's so many... I mean, again... God damn, I hate lists. The Godfather, Braveheart, and Empire Strikes Back. If that doesn't say enough about me as a human being, well then, piss off. The Godfather might be the greatest film ever made. The Godfather Part 2 is probably even better. But, I mean, The Godfather is just the end-all and be-all of film. It's amazing. Braveheart just had everything. That had love and hate and betrayal and for Mel Gibson to be such an asshole. He was so he has such an eye for directing. It's visually stunning. It's probably what Lord of the Rings. I mean, he could have done a version of Lord of the Rings, like the visual landscapes. That's the kind of eye. He shot it all in Scotland. It was just gorgeous. And what's to say about Empire Strikes Back that hasn't been said? Simple. Han shot first.
And yeah, I have to say that my list of movies is pretty pathetic compared to that, because since
Juno.
One more time for the listeners.
Juno. Did you put Juno on there 3 times?
Thought about it.
Go ahead.
So I have Juno, Lady Bird, and the Florida Project. So Juno, I don't even need to talk about
It's the only movie I've ever heard of out of all the 3 of them.
Well, Juno is just perfect and is a comfort movie, and something...
Here's Lady Bird.
Come on now.
I don't know what that is. What is it?
I'll get to it. Juno is just perfect because I'm an avid rewatcher. I will rewatch movies like I'm re-listening to a song. And I have sat down, I've come home from school, sat down to Juno and done my homework. I don't even know.
I've rewatched movies. I've rewatched movies. You don't think I rewatched movies?
Well, I probably watched Juno 4 days a week my freshman year. But I digress. It's just so good, and it's just comforting. And I love the saturation, and it's just perfect, and the soundtrack is amazing. Next is Lady Bird. It's a coming-of-age movie about a girl from Sacramento that wants to move to the East Coast. And I first saw it when I was a senior in high school, and I was like, get me out of New Jersey. And I really connected with her as a character. I'm sure it's not surprising that I am obsessed with A24, which is the film company. Just their aesthetic is amazing. Like, an honorable mention is I love the Pearl series. That trilogy is wonderful. Lastly, like I said, is the Florida Project. This is probably the deepest movie. I mean, it's pretty depressing, so I can't rewatch it as much as I'd like, because I will carry that sadness with me. Because I'm unfortunately a sympathy watcher, so I will start crying, but it's okay. It's just like, it's about this mom and her daughter that live in one of the motels on that strip in Orlando that's leading into Disneyland, or like Disney World. And just like that aesthetic is so compelling, and it's from the point of view of the children that live in that motel. And I just thought that was so interesting, because it shows like stores that we've driven by, like the one with the giant wizard outside of it, and they're selling Disney Channel knockoffs and stuff. And I thought that it was a really cool aesthetic to kind of build upon.
Okay.
So yeah, next is, well, last but not least is shows.
Television shows. See, this is the one where it's you go on and on and on and on about television shows. I have 54 years on you. Well, not 54, but I am 54. But I mean, there's just so much television in that span of time. To pick 2, you gave me 2. You asked me to pick 2 TV shows. How the hell are you supposed to? That's what you said. Your text. Look back on your text.
It was a typo, but it's okay.
Top 2 TV shows. What was it supposed to be 3?
It's all right.
There was supposed to be 3. Well, no, I can add a third very easily.
Wait, really quick?
So
I want you to save the one that you think we have in common for last, and we're going to count off to see if it's the one that I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. All right. So then I won't say that one first. Well, no, I have to, because my story behind it is there's a Family Guy episode that is absolutely hysterical, where Peter is sitting in the bed and he's saying, oh, if they're telling you about this show and that show, this show and that show, and those are the 2 shows that I love the most. The Wire and Breaking Bad. And Breaking Bad is on your list, I'm sure, because I turned you on to that show. So the third one, though, you said pick 3. I didn't know that. Justified, but absolutely. My dog is named Raylan after Raylan Givens. But 2 of those, I mean, 2 of those shows are just monumental, and the third is just so. The Justified, I think, is a little underrated. Started catching some fire later. Just wildly good. I mean, but I could go on and on. Deadwood from HBO. I mean, there's just even the first couple of seasons of The Sopranos. There's just so much good television out there. Fargo, like it's just crazy. That's just so. That's why I hate lists. That's why I hate lists. I could, if even a top 10, you're like, I don't know, this, watch that.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, for me, it's different because I really think that my personality just aligns well with what I'm consuming. So, which might not sound that good for the first show that I have, but.
But are you gonna consume something just for the sake of consuming it, or because you felt something that day? Like, I feel so today. I feel like watching 6 Feet Under, or I feel happy today. I'm gonna watch Deadpool again for the millionth time. I don't know. That's my gripe.
Well, yeah, I totally understand that because, like I said, I am definitely like a sympathy watcher and listener. So I can't really listen to sad music because it will really just look like I have a rain cloud over my head. But
okay,
I'll take that as a compliment. My top shows are Shameless, BoJack Horseman, and Breaking Bad, which again was expected, but it's okay. I'm all right with being predictable because I think Shameless is just I just love it, and it scares people sometimes when I say that I relate to parts of it. But I do, because, there's some times.
There was a lot of there was chaos.
Yeah, growing up, there's always
in our lives.
Chaos.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
First episode, sure. She runs out of milk, or there's this much milk left, so she just puts water in it. I'm like, that's what I did when I grew up. I remember doing that if we were running out.
Not at my house, you didn't. You didn't do that shit at my house.
But I feel like they're the first, set that really didn't romanticize, a house. Okay, it's unrealistic for them to afford a house like that. Yes.
No. It's if you really dug deep and watched that show, it's because Frank wasn't always the way he was, and their house wasn't exactly in the hills section. It was it was in a crummy neighborhood. It was Chicago.
Yeah, it was
I guess
South
that
Side.
was, right? Wasn't that South Side Chicago? So it wasn't like it was in the greatest neighborhoods. The house was unkept. There's a lot that you look at it from a deeper perspective, and you're like, okay, I get it. Houses were different back in the day to get a house, to own a house, to be a homeowner. It was just different, and you could tell there was no upkeep on the house at all. The kids ran the mill. He became the alcoholic that he became, and just
left it to Fiona.
let it all go to shit.
And
let her take care of it.
Yeah, I will always love a coming of age story, and I love that it was different, so many different ages all at the same time.
Each one of them came of age in their own separate way. It was interesting. That was an interesting dynamic. I want to get back to Breaking Bad. I think Breaking Bad was one of the best endings of any television shows
I'm
ever.
currently...
at least in stuff that I watched.
Yeah, I'm rewatching it right now, and there's just so much that you still feel like you're watching it for the first time. I just watched the episode. Don't listen to this part if you are planning on watching Breaking Bad, but also I don't feel bad because you should have watched it already. Anyways, so when Skylar gives Ted $600,000 and Walt is trying to restart their lives, and he's like, "Where's the money, Skylar?" And then he just starts maniacally laughing and is in fetal position. I was like, what is going on? I didn't even remember. But Bryan Cranston is amazing. He is also in Isle of Dogs, which is a really great movie. But it's crazy. He's so compelling, and I think he is just going to be Walter White forever in my heart, because when I hear his voice, that's what I think
There's
of.
There's an episode on that show called Ozymandias. It's probably my favorite episode of that show, of the whole arc. Just acting all the way around. The fall of Jesse Pinkman to the depths of where he got to, and Walt Walt bringing him there on that journey and showing him how to get there, basically, without, unbeknownst to anybody, was just incredible. And then releasing him from it, kind of, I think at the end was just, to me, at least that's what I got from it. It's like, I'm sorry here. I need to do this. I need to get you, you know what I mean? When he's like, you owe me a life. And it's like, what? You're like, holy shit. It was really wild. But I had a conversation because this came up about you asking me about these shows. There's I'll tie two of them together. There's an episode of Sons of Anarchy. It's either the penultimate episode or the finale. Not the greatest show on television. It was just good, really good drama. But the creator is from Jersey, and he used he used a Bruce Springsteen song in one of the episodes. It might be the penultimate episode, and it's just perfect. And he played, not only did, usually these shows they'll get like a few minutes of a song or a minute of a song or a little snippet. He played the entire song of Bruce called Adam Raise a Cain, and it was just brilliantly put into it. And to me, that was like the best case of a song being put to a television show ever. It was perfect. Like the guy was on a mission, and the song is about this. It's just wild. It was just really, really well placed, and just made that episode.
Yeah, and what you were saying about Jesse Pinkman, there's a trend on TikTok right now for those in the know where they just are talking about something so precious to them and they go, my Shayla. That's how I feel about Jesse Pinkman. That's my little guy. In my heart, he's my best friend, and I will heal him because it's literally making me tear up. I love Jesse Pinkman. I love Aaron Paul. And speaking of BoJack Horseman, I love Todd Chavez. Wonderful, wonderful characters, especially because BoJack Horseman parallels Walter White sometimes in a way that I'm like, y'all didn't have to do that.
Wow, we went over an hour. Where every episode, we got to add, every episode's not going to be an hour. We know that it takes a lot to sit and listen to somebody speak for an hour. That's insane. With no commercials, that's just nuts. But you wanted to get to know us, you got to know us. Hopefully you got to know us. Ask us questions. On our website, there's an email form you can send. Riley gets all that hate mail. I'm going to spam the shit out of it. Ask us questions. Maybe you have a show idea. Maybe you're like, you're an idiot. What the hell are you listening to Vitology by Pearl Jam for? I don't know. Or what are you watching that for? What the hell are you talking about? We just felt that it's going to be fun. It's a dad-daughter thing, and it's only going to go upward from here. This is us, getting our feet wet a little bit and getting to know, Riley, especially getting to know the controls because she's the one on that side of things. I'm just here to be goofy and act out.
Yeah, before we part on this fateful episode, I have a surprise. So I have the jar.
Is that the music jar, the album jar?
It says the music box on it because that was the workshop name. And I figured we shall segue into the next episode. Date to be determined, we'll see. We're still figuring everything out. So I figured post Grammys, post lists, post first episode. Let's see what album Angry Dad, Pops, whatever you know him as, might listen to.
Are you really you're gonna really pull something out of here that I gotta listen to? Oh God Almighty!
That's the idea of it, right?
I gotta write it in my phone so I can remember this horse shit.
Oh, Heaven or Las Vegas by the Cocteau Twins. So they are not they're not my age.
Heaven or Las Vegas? Right.
Anyways, this is actually...
That's the name of the album, Heaven or Las Vegas?
This is best case scenario. This is... So
I got lucky? Is that what you're
I'm saying I got lucky with hearing the flack. But yeah, so idea with the jar and the albums was really our first idea that we ever built upon. So I knew I wanted to incorporate that somehow. So...
We out. Peace.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in a few weeks, where Pops will be reviewing Heaven or Las Vegas, and I'll be giving some of my 2 cents. But if you guys have any recommendations for albums that you want to see me add to the jar, then please submit it on that contact form. If you have any ideas, let us know.
Yeah, don't let me know, because that's the whole idea, was her to do it without me knowing what the album is, because you wanted to see what my response is. Especially like if it's horse shit. I'm going to be like, what is this? What do you got me listening to here?
Yeah, we have some really...
I wouldn't throw it out the window. I mean, that's a waste of energy.
Yeah, we have some really interesting stuff in the jar, so we'll see. Head over to our Instagram at popsculturepod and our website, popsculturepod.com, because our wonderful and really talented and awesome social media director and website creator and just altogether creative is just like really cool at what she does. But yeah, I'm just really glad that we're getting started and the ball is rolling.
Nuka-Cola.
Nuka-Cola. All right, well, that's it for us. Pops and Rye are out.